If you're planning a summer road trip, this episode's for you. Welcome to Vacation Mavens, the podcast that brings you travel inspiration and practical tips from two moms who know how to plan the perfect trip.
I'm Tamara from Your Time to Fly.
And I'm Kim from Stuffed Suitcase. With over 40 years of travel experience between us, we're here to share our favorite destinations from road trips to cruising, theme parks, and European adventures.
Whether you're planning a family vacation or a mom getaway, we have the tips and tricks to make memories that will last a lifetime.
Before we get into our episode today, I wanted to take a moment to remind all of you that we are on YouTube.
Yeah.
So if you want to see Tamara and I, or if you like to just maybe stream your podcast listening that way, we do put our episodes up there as well. So tune into YouTube, subscribe to our channel. We would love the help there. And of course, we're always asking for new reviews that help our show get found by others. So leave us a review as well if you would be so kind. So now we are going to jump into road trips. Are you ready, Tamara?
I'm ready because I think this summer I'm going to have to make another really long road trip from Rhode Island to Tucson, but hopefully we'll take a different route this time and see some new things.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I think it's funny also to talk to people because I feel like there's road trips and then there's also just like using the road to get from point A to point B.
True.
And I think those are handled very differently. Like often when we road trip up to Canada to visit family, we're all about do it in one overnight, just get up there. So it's 9 hours of driving each day. It's more like 6 and then 9. But so it's more about getting to the destination. And so there's definitely, that still counts as a road trip in my opinion. But then there's road trips I think you and I have had experience of where you're taking a little, you're driving a few less hours each day and maybe seeing some stops along the way, planning your route to see those stops. So yeah, those were a lot of fun.
And trust me, like even last year when we drove out to Tucson, Hannah wanted to do Memphis. And she wanted to do Great Smoky Mountain National Park.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to do Santa Fe. So like we each had our things in there where we stayed like a little longer or we shortened the drive just to make it enjoyable and not just a slog of can we get across the country in 3 days or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're planning road trips, so like I just mentioned, when we get up to Canada, we drive 5-ish, 6 hours in one day and then 9 the next. Do you have like if you're trying to do it more of a leisure road trip and seeing things along the way, do you have a set number of hours that you drive each day?
I'm trying to think back to some of the Midwest road trips and the Southern road trips that we've done to think about it, because sometimes it's more about getting to that place and then making sure we have a day and a half or 2 days in that place. And so it depends on how long it is in between. But I would say like for that type of road trip, trying to keep it to 4 to 5 hours, maybe up to 6, like max, like between destinations would be ideal, because even when I'm trying to just bang it out and get further down the road, I don't like to drive more than 8 or 9 hours, or because I know that's actually probably going to be like 10 to 12 hours, because stops and all of that and having a meal or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that when we've done some of our road trips where they're more of the leisure road trips along the way, I try and keep it around the 3.5 to 5 hour mark because of the stops along the way. If it's a scenic drive, if it's middle of, America, it's pretty flat, you can push that a little bit. But I definitely think, like, for example, the West Coast road trip, I found that when we did it the first time, that 5 to 6 hours was too much because you want to pull out all the scenic stops. You want to drive through the large tree. Like you want to do all those little things. So you don't want to just go from point A to point B. So I do think that's where it's a good idea to keep in mind that if you're taking a leisure time, you're going to stop for a nice little cute lunch in some small town along the way. And, and all those scenic pullouts.
That's so much nicer than just going to the rest area and picking up whatever like fast food or crap that they have in there. It's just nice to kind of have that more authentic experience. I know last year when we were doing our trip, we were going right past Cadillac Ranch. Have you seen that?
Oh, I've heard of it.
It's like, I think that's what it's called, right? With all the cars that are propped up. It's like in the desert in Texas. Yep. And it's just literally like off the highway. People like kind of walk out there. There's spray paint cans that people leave so you can like kind of leave your mark on it. And I was like, you know what? If I'm this close, like I want to see it. Like I've driven through Kansas where it's, I don't know, the giant ball of twine is 300 miles this way. And you're like, no, I'm not doing that.
I don't think I'll go that
but
way,
when it's that close, I'm like, I want to stop. And Hannah was, I'm like, she's not a big fan of the roadside attraction.
The roadside attraction.
Whereas I like it a little bit more,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's whole books about those roadside attractions.
Yeah, I mean, when we were in, where is it, South Dakota, we stopped at the Corn Palace. It's like this whole,
I've heard of the Corn Palace. Yeah,
So
exactly.
all of those things are fun. I don't know.
There's one of those places in South Dakota or North Dakota. It's like the gas station that's turned into kind of almost like an old town boardwalk, and there's like these rooms with weird like taxidermy and it's like a S Brock. I don't know if our listeners, if you guys know, leave me a comment or something. Tell me what the name of this place is that I'm thinking of.
For me, the Dakotas have tons of that because driving through North Dakota, there's a giant buffalo, there's a giant cow, there's like this whole trail that has all these different metal sculptures on it. And then in South Dakota, you have Wall Drug and you have the
that's the
Corn
one
Palace.
I'm thinking of.
Okay,
Wall Drug. That's it. That's the one I was thinking of.
I think certain places are really big on the.
Yeah, exactly. I know when we've gone up to Canada a couple times, there's one spot that has like the largest not tractor, but I don't know. It's like a bulldozer tractor type thing, and we put one of the like the girls in one of the tires at one point.
Yeah,
and it's what could be is like this tiny little thing, this huge. Anyways, that can be fun memories, but. Before we start talking about some of our favorite road trips, I think a fun idea would be to just kind of touch base in case some people maybe have forgotten this. I feel like we're all adults. A lot of us have learned this, but it's always good to have a refresher course. So let's talk about maybe prepping the car before we head out on a road trip. I know I have some ideas of what we do, so I'd love to maybe kick it off with you. Is there any kind of must-do things like maintenance-wise or prepping your car that you do?
You're probably better at it than I am, but the things that I would think of would be just to make sure that it's been serviced recently.
Yeah.
And I'm not really good about checking the tires, but if I had any alerts, like I'd obviously be taking care of that. I don't know. It's more kind of the very basic things for me, but educate me on what else I should be doing.
I think that's a good place to start. Definitely make sure it's been serviced. Your oil has good oil life on it. And then I would just check all your fluids. A big thing we do is often we'll use like the bug windshield washer fluid if we're going on a big road trip, the ones that help clean the bug instead of just the traditional washer fluid. And sometimes those or oil change places that fill up and they top up your washer fluid for you, they like water that stuff down and it's not good at all. So sometimes I'll try and lower the amount. I've never siphoned it, but you can try and lower it by using it a lot and then use like a bug one or if you're going to be traveling.
I didn't even know that they had that actually. Yeah, when we've done the long road trips, it's okay. One of us is going to clean the windshield. One of us is going to pump the gas.
Yeah, that's a big thing. And the headlights.
Yeah, when we did like our Midwest road trip, I remember we started in Chicago and we did, I don't know, 6 or 7 states and we came back to Chicago, dropped off the car and the guy it was a white car and the whole front of it was like a modern art display of like colored bug guts. He was just like, looked at it and he was like, you drove this car 3,600 miles in 2 weeks. And I'm like, what's your point? It's unlimited miles, right? And he's like, I had to bring this for an oil change. I'm like, that's your problem.
No.
But I remember those bugs were... it was I can't even imagine how much they had to scrub those off.
Yeah, I would just say look for a gas station with a car wash along your route sometimes, and feel free if you fill up with gas, just run it through the car wash.
That's a good idea
as well while you're on your trip.
Yeah.
So we like to start with the car washed. We make sure all the fluids are good. Check your tire pressure. Remember that air expands as you drive and gets hot. So if it's been sitting for a while, you might not want to check your tires right away. You want to check them once you've driven a little bit. So that's one thing to remember. And yeah, just kind of that kind of maintenance that we like to do is make sure your oil change is good and check all your fluids.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And what about getting ready to kind of walk out the door and pack up your car? Because I know there's a lot of things that you and I have done this a lot, so we kind of instinctively make sure that we have it. But what are your go-to things that you need to bring with you on a road trip, but then also like we'll get into the tips of how you pack the car as well.
Yeah, I was going to say kind of it's about how you pack the car, but definitely snacks. You need some good snacks. I'm all about bringing a go-to kit near the driver's seat that has like wipes, paper towels, napkins, even stuff like eye drops, lip balm, all that stuff that you might, if you're driving, because people don't realize once you're driving for 2 or 3 hours, like your eyes get dry or, and you don't want to be digging for it and other people are napping. You can't necessarily ask them to get the stuff for you. So we always try and have some of those go-to maintenance things easy for the driver to get to.
Yeah, totally. So. I am someone that I get a little panicked if I don't have a lip balm within an arm's reach at all times. So
me too.
Yeah. So I agree with that. Sanitizer extra. I like to bring maybe a couple extra baggies or like ziplocs. Like you need your garbage bag, but also just sometimes, you might need
leftover snacks.
Yeah, something that's kind of smelly or whatever. You want to just
we actually, I think that's a good idea for trash bags too. We also have one that like for the front seats, we have a garbage, and then each of the kids would have their own when they were little kids. That way they could keep track of their own garbage. And because otherwise they just end up, if you're like, this is your garbage, then they know. And then you know who's not using it. If they can't blame it on, that's not my granola bar wrapper. So we always just kind of have garbage bags for easy reach for each person. But one of the things I was going to bring up is that when you talked about kind of stinky smells, I do think it's a good idea to have a little Febreze. And we even have it's like a air purifier. I think it's from Scosche, which is kind of like that car accessory brand. But you can plug it in and it is amazing, especially for food smells when we've eaten on the road. We have that thing and we don't keep it plugged in always, but then I'll plug it in if we've just eaten. And it does an amazing job because I hate that road trip smell where you've eaten food and then you come back, you go into a hotel for the night and you come out of the car in the morning. You're like, oh my goodness, it smells disgusting.
I think I should get one of those just for when we go and pick up Five Guys because that smell lingers in your car. Like the next day, you'd be like, yeah, I know you snuck Five Guys or something in. Well, you probably don't know because all the peanuts, you don't go
We're
to
getting
that,
there. Yeah. She's officially cleared. Some of you might not know, but Mia's in a food allergy program. She has severe nut allergies, but she recently just cleared cross-contamination for peanuts. So she can eat like M&Ms stuff. Okay. So if it says may contain peanuts, and then she can eat Chick-fil-A, which is they use peanut oil to cook.
They do. Okay.
And supposedly they say it's denatured or something, but we've never risked it, of course.
Yeah, because Five Guys is like peanut oil, but there's like peanuts everywhere.
No, we wouldn't do the peanuts everywhere. Yeah. That's still a no-go for us. A couple more years for that.
Yeah, I don't even know how that exists, but I know. Yeah, so those are some good things. And,
but I think it's good.
One of the things that I would mention too is I made sure everybody in our family has a AAA membership. I don't know if you do that as well, but I think make sure you have your card with you as you're heading out because it's not always so easy to look up. I mean, you can have a digital card, but just understand that these, from someone that worked at AAA when she was in college, making triptychs, they're regional, usually the AAA offices. So it's a little bit harder nationwide to just look up your information maybe it's changed, but I don't think so. They can't necessarily just look up your account number by whatever. So you should have that with you. I know it's helped like Hannah a couple times this year. She had a flat tire. She had a dead battery. And so that helped to have somebody to come out, unless your car is new and under some kind of maintenance plan or roadside coverage. I think having something like AAA is a good thing because if you have to get your car towed, it is so expensive.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. So we've kind of gone over some of the things we definitely make sure we want to bring. What do you like? Let's start talking about some of our strategies and tips for packing up the car.
Yeah, so I always feel like with longer road trips, I would prefer not to bring the big suitcase that I would bring if I'm just, going somewhere for a week or staying at a hotel for a few days. Just because you have to go in and out so often. And if I do bring a bigger suitcase, I also bring a smaller duffel bag so I can kind of transfer some things back and forth because hauling it all in, especially sometimes you're staying at hotels that don't have a ton of space. And if you're all sharing a room, it just gets really crowded in there. So I like to think about, can I pack this in a couple of smaller bags or can I at least have an extra bag for me to transport in and out?
I think that's totally right. We, a lot of times will use carry-ons and just roll them in and, on road trips. But the quick overnight bag, especially for our family, if you're doing like one overnight or two overnights, it can be really handy to have everyone's toiletries in one bag. And then everybody has like their pajamas and a change of clothes for the next day. And then you just bring that one bag into the hotel. On longer road trips, I do think that's a good idea. I also think it's a good idea to have like a laundry bag in your whatever suitcase you're switching stuff out. That way when you come, so the idea is that maybe you'd have your tote that you take in to the hotel for that night that always has your toiletries and everything in it. And then you have a carry-on, more traditional suitcase in the car itself. And then when you come back out from the hotel that next day, take your dirty laundry out of your tote bag, put it in the laundry bag in the other one. And then at one point when you go into an overnight stay that has laundry facilities, maybe you can carry in your laundry bag and do a load of laundry there.
Yeah, so definitely.
I think that's kind of
and that brings me to thinking about like choosing where you stay when you're on a road trip because I know when we've traveled, there's such a temptation to be like, oh, we're going through this city. Like I want to stay and get to see a bit of the city. And it sounds great, except realizing that once you're staying downtown, you're typically like paying for parking. those are not always the hotels that include the free breakfast. And you have to deal with traffic depending on like when you're leaving or when you're getting there. And so sometimes if you're on a long road trip and it's more about getting to the place, I would suggest stay at a chain hotel out by the highway, pick the courtyard of the Hilton Garden and actually pick one breakfast, and free parking. And those will also usually have some laundry facilities.
Yep, I agree. I think those like more suite style places that have laundry facilities and free breakfast are huge for road trips. They're so convenient. They get you on the road fast. They help you get up and around in the morning. The other big benefit to that, I would say, is if you do decide to try and stick to one of the big chains. Unfortunately, Hyatt's doesn't have as big of a footprint. So most of the time people are thinking like Best Western, Hilton, Marriott. And if you're choosing one of those, I would advise you, if you're planning a long road trip, look at maybe even getting one of their credit cards or something like that to earn some bonus points. And then just stick with that same chain as you go along. I know right now Best Western has a stay 2 nights, get a $50 gift card deal. And they do that. Best Western every summer has something. There's Best Westerns on our route up to Canada. So we almost always are doing that, where if we stay at Best Western sometime during the summer and then we stay that one night there or both ways back, scores us a gift certificate for the next time.
And I did find last summer, I haven't seen it yet this summer, but Hyatt, they have like Hyatt Place and, they don't have as big of a footprint, but they do have, some options. They sometimes will do like a bonus, but you have to register for it. So if you're like a member, then you register for it. And then if like you've stayed 2 times or 3 times or whatever it is within a certain time period, then you get like bonus points. And so it's one of those things to keep an eye out, because if you're going to be staying, you might as well get everything that you can out of it.
I would agree. Yeah, I think Hilton has one of those going on right now. If you stay 2 nights, you get 2,000 bonus points or something like that. So yeah, definitely good. But like Tamara said, a lot of times you have to register for those. So if you are doing anything, make sure you check the promotions tab and register for any of that stuff going on. Cool.
So what about when you're on the road? What do you recommend? Or we know we've talked about apps in the past, but it probably bears mentioning again some of them that are super useful.
Yeah. Before we start talking apps, I want to bring up one quick thing about packing up while we're on the road. We also keep a snack, like we have a bin of snacks that I kind of keep everything together, and we keep that in easy reach to as a family of 4, all 4 of us. But you can keep a smaller set and then restock. If you keep, like a box of granola bars, you could keep in the back and then just restock like each day. Oh, we need to add some granola bars, or we need to add that. So that is something you can do. And I do recommend like having a specific place for your snacks so that it's organized. And I think the organization is key. And then at every stop, we've gotten really good about everything gets put back in its place and all the garbage gets thrown out. Like every time you stop, which for, us, sometimes it's like every 2 to 3 hours because we just need to stretch our legs or switch drivers, then everything's getting reorganized, all the garbage is going out. So that's one of our big tips. So I wanted to bring that up.
When you mentioned that, it made me think that I do like to bring like a soft cooler, a cooler bag of some sort with an ice pack. And then if you are staying at a hotel that has even the little hotel refrigerators, sometimes have that tiny little freezer that you can just bring the ice pack in, refreeze it. And just helps with, sometimes if you have leftovers or you want to keep cold snacks or to keep cold drinks, So
yeah. We actually have one of those mini car fridges, and our minivan has a plug, like I don't know what they call the old fashioned, it was the cigarette lighter plug. Yeah. So I don't know what it's like actually called now, but it plugs in the back of our minivan. And so we have a little fridge there that we'll store like vegetables or leftover sandwiches and things like that. We'll put them in there.
Yeah.
So that's always a good idea.
Because if your little snack bin has, I don't know, a lot of like granola bars and things have chocolate in them, and then sitting in the sun and it gets all melty. This is why you need the wipes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely wipes. And, some people we've never brought our car vacuum on the trip, but I could see some people being like all about vacuuming it up if they really wanted to keep their car clean. I feel like when you just are on a road trip and you kind of accept stuff, and then when you come back from the road trip, you go to the car wash again and you vacuum it.
You get a really good one. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But speaking of apps, one of the big ones we still use to this day, and I'm sure there's other newer ones, but this has just been our go-to, is Gas Buddy. Again, we love this thing because as we're going, we can kind of go, oh, this city is cheaper than that city, so let's make sure to fill up in this city instead of going to this city. And so we'll look at the route kind of on Gas Buddy in advance just to get an idea of what cities have cheaper gas. In Canada, that's a big thing because gas is a lot cheaper than in Alberta than British Columbia. So you want to wait until you cross the border. Oregon, Washington's kind of tricky with now Oregon's changed their law, so you can fill up with your own gas. But you just always want to be mindful of which, what the prices are like. And then when you're on the trip, be like, oh, that Chevron is actually cheaper than this place. And yeah, so that's one of the ones we use.
That makes me think about, since you have an electric car too, but you probably don't use it for road trips. We only have one car right now. So unless we're renting when we've flown somewhere, we are dealing with charging and thinking about that. And I should say we only have one car. Like Glenn and I share a car, and then Hannah has a car. Hers luckily is a hybrid, can go a little further on the gas. But there are definitely apps that you can use to plan your road trip if you do have an electric vehicle, to try to plan the charging. And just keep in mind that like it's going to go faster when it's cold, like your battery. And, I'm someone that likes to stretch the gas until we're down to like under 10 miles, Don't do that with an electric car. Because you can't just have somebody come with a little can to fill you up,
Yeah, absolutely. I do wonder if AAA has like generator plugs or
I wonder.
Started
I wonder.
The one thing about the electric cars also that I wanted to say is there are issues where the charger's not working or it's full when you get there. So if you're planning on, I'm going to fill up at this place or I'm going to recharge here, we've had a lot of times, especially in the Seattle area, that all the ports are full. And so you're like, what do I do now?
It's definitely changed over the years, like busier and busier. And it is, sometimes those apps will say that they're open, but then somebody pulls in and takes it, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, generally, people don't stay very long. And at least here in the Northeast, like all of the rest areas along like 95, most of them will have a whole section of charging stations. And
that's nice.
Usually we'll pull in. It's kind of like towards the back of the parking lot. We'll plug in, we'll walk in, use the bathroom. Maybe Glenn will get a coffee or something like that. And by the time we come back out to the car, maybe it needs like just a couple more minutes to top off and then we're ready to go.
Nice.
So it really isn't that
same
disruptive. Well, it helps because we have a Tesla, unfortunately. But because we have that, the superchargers go a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One of the other apps I was going to mention that I've talked about before, but I think Road Trippers is a lot of fun for planning a road trip because you can kind of see spots along the way. But one thing I wanted to mention for road tripping that stood out to us a couple of years ago is actually Google searching. When you search for the attraction that you might want to see or the restaurant you might want to visit, you can look at the crowd graph and you might see, because we realized that the drive-through tree we wanted to go to was actually a lot less busy at night than in the morning. And so it's kind of cool to be able to go, we'll do that at the end of our day and we'll stop by there as opposed to like on the way or in the morning.
And I think when we're thinking about Google Maps, a lot of times when I get to a hotel at night, I'll map something for the next day and see about how long it's going to take and just realize that's late at night. It's going to change during the day. Because of traffic and everything. And just also, we're talking about summer road trips. Just understand that there is a lot of construction that happens in the summer. Last year on our road trip, we were stuck for hours. It was extended our days. Like what was going to be an 8-hour drive was like a 13-hour drive. It was really challenging in places, but at least our roads are getting better, I guess.
Yeah. And there's accidents too. Like I just took my niece up across the border and there was an accident on a 2-lane highway. So it added 25 minutes to our drive. Thankfully, we were early and they didn't miss their flight. But so that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah. And if you are planning in advance, sometimes it helps if you want to visualize like sometimes people are just like, I want to take a road trip, don't really know how to structure it. And so if you are a AAA member, I suggest like getting the old-fashioned paper map, opening it up, and like you can very easily then see what the route might be. We had some fun doing that last year at the USA map and highlighted different ones. It brought me back to my TripTik days. But, we were deciding like, do we want to take 70 and then 40 or do we want to do 40? All the different kind of things. But then it does help if you know that there's places you want to stop, that if you are using Google Maps, like to star it or to save it, because then when you're looking at the map, it's easy. It's going to search. Up. You're going to be able to save before and it shows up. So visually you can see it pretty easily. So it's a little bit of like advanced planning just to make things easier when you're on the go.
Yeah. We always love those road atlases. We still keep the Rand McNally road atlases. We love those. And it is a good thing to realize that when you're planning your drive times and Google's telling you like it's going to be a certain amount, but if you see a lot of roads that are ziggly, switchback and curves and mountain-ish
it's going to take longer.
Looking on a paper, it's going to take longer than what Google's telling you. Because Google's assuming that you're all going to be driving at 55 miles an hour, but when you're in the middle of the mountains on switchbacks, you're not going 55.
And you're so used to living in very populated areas. But when you're in other places in the country or in Canada, wherever, like coverage is not always so great.
Right.
And like last year, we were driving through New Mexico and I expected to go like straight across to Albuquerque and then south down 15. And then all of a sudden it was like, make a right, take this exit. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, do I listen to it or not listen to it? I didn't have a map to be able to see.
What is it trying to make
What are they trying to make me do? Yeah. What does that look like? And then I was like, all right, we'll just follow it. And so then I'm just going and going on this small little road. And it was beautiful, but I was so stressed that I couldn't enjoy it because I'm like, we have no coverage. I can see there's like a forest fire in the distance and I see like fire trucks coming my way. So are they evacuating? No. Or if I get up there and a road is closed and I have no idea which way to turn except to turn back. And when is the next gas? And like the bathroom, and he was like taking a nap or like just looking out the window. And I'm like sitting there like getting more and more stressed.
Internalizing.
And if I had just known, if I could look at a map and be like, okay, this is what it's doing. Got it. I see a town here. We'll be okay. Like, it would have eased my mind a lot more. So just kind of, I know it seems very old school, but having those paper maps or saving something like saving your map for offline use.
Offline. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good idea. Let's kind of wrap this up with talking about maybe some of our favorite road trips. And we'll share that. So why don't you kick us off? What's one that stands out in your mind?
I'm going to go with one that I also know is really popular on one of the posts that I've written, which is the Maine coast road trip. So kind of going up from Boston and then following the Maine coast up to Bar Harbor and Acadia National Park. And then you can go a little further if you want to. But it's just a really beautiful scenic. I mean, if you're on the highway, it's not as scenic. But if you make a point to make it a scenic drive, there's so many cute little towns to stop at. You can visit lighthouses, have lobster rolls, climb on the rocks, find some beaches, So it's nice to spread it over, even though it's not, a terribly long drive. I think you can do it in like under 8 hours. Like if you plan to spend a few days, like just enjoying the coast. So that would be one where it's, only drive like an hour or two each day, but then stay at a different point along the way.
Yeah. That's nice. It sounds beautiful. I need to come explore more of that area.
Yeah, I mean, we did a little bit.
We did a little, but I'd like to
do more. So what about you?
I'm going to bring up, I'll stay on your coast. Okay. And I'll bring up a trip that you and I did together, which was the Florida Keys road trip.
Yeah.
I remember having so much fun with you on that trip.
Yeah.
And it's an area of the United States that I had never been to, and I didn't know what to expect. I've been in Miami, and I've been in Florida, and left cruises, and I've been in the Caribbean. But this was very different than what I expected, and I liked getting the feel for that vibe. I love how each of the little islands along the way all have a very different feel. Some have more of a country feel, and some feel very like Caribbean and green and lush, and then others are very more rocky and not as vegetative. And then, of course, you get down to Key West, and it's just like a party scene, but with great hotels and like a lot of history and charming, like the whole Hemingway stuff. And so I think that's just a trip that stands out in my mind. And it's actually so easy to do. I mean, I was just shocked that you and I flew into Miami, right? Together and rented
a car there. Or Fort Lauderdale, one of those.
Whichever one. And then we rented a car and just drove down. We stayed at Isla Morada. And then kept driving, and we were in Key West a little bit. Yeah. Or maybe we weren't in Isla Morada. Where were we?
Yeah, Key Largo. I think we're in Key Largo.
That's right. Key Largo. We went to Isla to visit the restaurant that has the crazy carpet. What were those fish? The giant fish that they fed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I like is it still feels very retro. And, like you still have the big shops that sell shells.
Yeah.
And all the food places feel like mom and pop kind of things. And it's not like see the biggest whatever, but it has that kind of vibe. And so I think that's what makes it so great is not only is it really scenic, but it has this kind of classic road trip vibe to it too.
100%. Remember how we drove off on one of the islands? We went to some like famous bar that has all these dollar bills.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
And those where all the key deer are, like the tiny little deer.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's so crazy. Yeah, I agree. It's kind of got this old kitschy road trip vibe.
That's the word, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, very cool. So what about you? Do you have one more to share before we wrap out?
Well, you came to my coast, so I'm going to go into your territory a little bit and say that one of the best road trips that Hannah and I have done was our Canadian Rockies trip. So we flew into Calgary, and then we did a couple days in Kananaskis. Why can I not pronounce this today? I've always done it before. And then a couple of days in Canmore, which is just south of Banff, because it's a little bit cheaper than staying in Banff
super expensive
proper.
Now. It's gotten so expensive,
And then up to Jasper, and just like that drive through Banff and Jasper National Parks, like along the Icefields Parkway, is just so stunning. And that's the kind of place, that's the kind of drive where you need to build in the time to take this hike, go see this lake and all of that. And it's just stunning. So stunning. I love it up there.
Stunning area. Yeah. I mean, if you can go I have a friend who's like an expert in Banff stuff, but maybe we'll have her on one of these days, because that area, it's gotten so logistical about planning, and I would highly recommend like avoid peak summer as much as possible.
It's so true. I'm actually helping a client plan her trip there right now, and I was saying like there's, there are a lot of things that I do, but some of the getting the permit for different things, I'm like, you need to do that because you have to set up your own like recreation.gov account or whatever. And I'm like, okay, it opens at this time. And she's like, is this something I really need to do? I'm like, yes, you need to be online the minute it opens. And she texts me, she's, I'm number 24,000 in a queue. And I'm like, yeah, it's like getting Taylor Swift tickets. It's hard. So all of these things. And it's unfortunate because it just makes it's like Disney, right? It's like more complicated on the planning side. And that's why, having someone to help you figure that stuff out in advance. It's not a fly by the night kind of thing.
If you've never done it, I highly recommend, if you don't have Tamara who knows all the ins and outs of it, like you need to research it, because it is no longer just I'm going to drive up to, I mean, everybody thinks because it's like Canada but it is a bucket list trip for so many people. So you really have to realize like people from all over the world are coming for this to be their bucket list trip.
And a lot of tour groups, and those tour groups book things out. Like I was looking at like booking like a lake cruise, and I could see, okay, this one and this one are already booked out in the end of August. But I know that's probably a big tour group.
Yep. Yeah. So I will stay kind of West Coast and bring up one of my favorite road trips that I've done, I think 3 times now with the kids. And that is the West Coast road trip. All the way, we've gone from Seattle down to Southern California. And I've done it a few different ways, and I absolutely love it. And that is the one where I say, do not plan driving more than 3.5 hours a day, because there are so many turnouts and, beautiful things to see. And I've shared this tip numerous times. I highly recommend driving north to south, because those roads, when you get, and also check, because the Big Sur, I think there was another landslide, and there's a section of it that's closed right now. And that seems to be a yearly occurrence now. It's happening all the time. So be sure to really check that you're not planning any specific, because there are sections and you'll have to be rerouted around. But as you head north to south, you're able to pull into those scenic viewpoints along the coast and see everything. And then, of course, the passengers can all see that, unless you, of course, are Glenn and he wants to be on the mountains.
Yeah, we still have a picture of him after we did that drive. And when I may have even taken a picture of the floor mat on his side, because I was driving, and then he had these like imprints of his feet where he was like bracing
holding
himself.
on.
Yeah. We're actually just looking at one of the ideas that we have for next year is to do Norway. And I don't do it in a car. So I'm like, I think we're going to have to do like rail or cruise. Yeah. But we were just talking about that, and I was showing him some of the roads. So yeah.
I'm not even a scared bird, and we're planning this Switzerland trip, and there's a hike that I'm just like, I want to do the hike, but even seeing like some of the paths right on the side of the mountain, I was like, oh.
Those are the ones that I do on my treadmill. And then I'm like, and even sometimes then I find myself like leaning a little bit like one way.
That's hilarious.
So I think those are really good options. And I have a feeling that you're going to be doing that trip a lot more frequently now. Or maybe at least one.
I think it'd be fun to do it as a solo, but I definitely, I want to do that trip again and go see Mia down there in Southern California.
And you and I still need to plan our at least Washington, Oregon road trip.
I think it's amazing. There's so many areas of the Washington and Oregon coast that I have not explored and been to that it's really cool. So we should do that. Cool. Thank you again, everyone. And hopefully you've tuned into our YouTube channel. Give it a subscribe. And then also, of course, leave us a review and help us get seen by others.
Yeah. And I will say, even if you don't watch us on YouTube, if you don't mind going over there and subscribing, that would be great. Give us hit the subscribe buttons, hit the thumbs up. So
yeah. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe and rate and review on your favorite podcast app, as that helps other people discover us. And if you want to see more, follow me, Tamara, at Your Time to Fly on Instagram and Facebook and all the others.
And you can follow me, Kim, at Stuff Suitcase on Instagram, Facebook, and of course my blog.